two of the teachers spoke with me the next couple of days and asked if I would share my story about depression and anxiety with a health class and a senior anthropology class. So I put together a presentation, a PowerPoint, and some notes, and went in and spoke. And as I shared that depression was connected with not sleeping, anxiety, not being able to get to sleep, stay asleep, depression, you've lived through anxiety long enough that you're exhausted all the time, and the joy in life is gone, and you're not having fun anymore. Concentration difficulties, memory difficulties, marks dropping, attendance, you don't come to school because you're tired all the time. As I shared that, after the presentation, a group of students followed me back to my office like I was the Pied Piper. And they wanted to share that they were living through many of the same symptoms that I was living through. And the more we talked, the more we realized that everyone knows someone who's going through something. As I did more research, the statistics show 1 out of 5 people will go through a mental health issue at some time in their life where it affects them in a debilitating way. And so if you look at a classroom that has 5 rows of 5 people in it, that's like 1 person per row. And I kind of joke around, I'll take it for the row I'm in, I've already got it. But as these students shared, some really interesting things and patterns started to emerge. One student came back later to share in more detail and shared that he's in grade 11, really poor marks, needed to get a scholarship to get into university, and but just can't sleep, and his marks are dropping, and he can't concentrate, and so I asked him. I said, "Well, when did it start? Like, when do you last remember having fun, coming to school, and life was joyful?" And that ended up being a really cool question to ask other people, because students were able to pinpoint it. And for him, it was in grade 9. He was getting high 80s, 90s, doing fantastic. And as he shared more, his I asked, did anything major happen at that time? And he said, well, no, nothing major happened in grade 9, but my parents got divorced. And I'm thinking, hold it. Nothing major? Your parents got divorced? That's one of the most major things that could happen in a kid's life. And so we continued to talk, and he continued to share about some of his angst. And I started to realize that long before parents divorce, the kids, and I'm not blaming parents for divorce or for their kids' anxiety, it's just, this is an understanding of things that had happened, was long before the parents divorce, there's angst in the house. And during that angst, the kids pick it up. They sense it, they may hear it, they may see what's going on with the parents, but they know there's something off. And their job is to try to figure out the world as young adults and kids and teenagers. And if there's this angst and all of a sudden your family life doesn't make sense anymore, well, then you have trouble sleeping at night or staying asleep, and trouble concentrating and focusing. And that's kind of the pattern seemed to be, was something happened to cause that angst. So for some kids, it ended up being just moving schools. They moved schools and lost their group of friends from the last school, and the move caused them that angst. And that's where their sleeping problems happened, and their inability to concentrate and focus, and grades dropping. And remember, I'm not a psychologist or a doctor. I'm describing patterns that emerged consistently. And the good news, though, is once we went back and we were able to briefly talk about that time period, then the kids got the aha as to what caused it. And I think I shared earlier that talking through something helps us find the cause. Meds deal with the symptoms, And without going into their psychology of what and why, having them go back and be able to figure out where it all started was like lifting the weight of the world off their shoulders. And I can almost see the weight of the world coming off them. And as I took it off their shoulders, I'd actually say sometimes I could see the weight lift off you, and I would visualize I was picking up the weight of the world, but I said, I'm not putting it on my shoulders. I tried carrying it already, and that didn't work for me. That led to my anxiety and depression. I'm just going to put the weight of the world down over here for a while, and it can rest there. So the next step I would do was I would say to the kids, well, thanks for sharing. How would I call your mom or dad and let them know that we had talked and that you're, exhibiting some of these things, and at that point, I wasn't trained to talk about anxiety or depression. It was just to share with the parents that the child had identified with some of the symptoms or the feelings or symptoms I was sharing, and most of the kids would say no right away, and a panic. Don't call my parents. And I'm thinking, your parents, ever since you were born, you're their little baby. They love you and like you forever. I'll love you for always. As long as you're living, my baby you'll be. And no matter what it is, we're there as parents to take care of you. But they really were quite adamant at times. They didn't want their parents to know. And so as talking with it about them, I thought they were going to tell me, the students were going to tell me that, no, I don't want my parents to know I'm a screw up and all that stuff. And time and time again, the student's answer was, my parents have enough on their plate. They don't need to be worrying about me. And that was pretty profound. That, wow, so whatever's going on in the home, that the kids say, I don't want to put more on my parents, when really that's our job as parents. We signed up for that when we had you. So that was really powerful to be able to share that then with parents in general as to why kids don't want to talk. Again, some kids. For most kids, after we talked, they would say, it's okay, yeah, you can talk to my parent. And when I call their parents, the calls went pretty similarly. I'd speak to someone and say, hi, it's Mr. O'Reilly. I did a presentation on mental health in your son or daughter's class, and they came back to share that they're going through some stress and angst and stuff. And that would be as far as I'd get. And the parent would cut me off and say, oh, thank goodness they spoke to someone. We knew there was something going on. Or they'd say, oh my gosh, his brother had the same thing, or someone in the family has similar things. And that was it. The parents were just relieved to know, and then the child could go home and have the conversation. Now, I couldn't just leave the kids at that level that they talked to me about it. My next step was, we have a child and youth worker in every high school. So I would then ask the student if I could connect them with the child and youth worker. And that way, if they're feeling the angst or the anxiety, or had a bout where they're so exhausted with depression, they don't want to go to class, and being in a classroom, the lights and the noise is too overwhelming for their anxiety, they could go work in the child and youth worker's office or room. And that worked out really, really well. So instead of skipping class and walking out of class and we don't know where they are, now we have the kids empowered to say, you know what, I'm just going to go take my books and work in the, may I go and take my books and work in the child youth worker's room? And sometimes they'd work there for half a period and go back. Sometimes they would take that period. Sometimes they'd take a whole morning. Sometimes they'd take a day. But we knew where they were. They weren't skipping, and they were getting the help and support they need. So some pretty cool insights from some pretty cool teens who are willing to talk about what's going on in their brain, and helping me understand and not suspend kids as much for skipping class, instead coming to solutions and giving the teens, the teenagers, some control and power over what to do when they feel the anxiety symptoms, the depression symptoms, instead of just not showing up to class. That's all for now.